super happy to have you here. We're back with another episode of Coffee Cultura. This is a podcast where we bring our community closer to the producers behind the coffees that they drink, and where the producers share with us their invaluable knowledge and tell us firsthand about their experience, cultural, ethical, sustainability, and all the work that goes behind every bean that we consume here. Thank you so much, Sydney, for being with us. A brief introduction based on our conversations and what we know about you. You are a co-founder of Lot 20. It's a unique initiatives where you are kind of, at least for me, I see you redefining the way producers and farmers work together in Kenya. Lot 20 isn't just a producer, it's an initiative where you work directly with farmers in the Rift Valley in Kenya region, and redefining what it means to bring transparency, innovation to the coffee trade. Sydney, it's an absolute pleasure to sit with you and have a looking forward conversation with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to visit you guys here in Barcelona. It's been a lovely few days. I'm super excited to share the work we do in Kenya. And also, we're super happy that you're supporting us by bringing some of our coffee on board and sharing with the coffee community around Barcelona and Spain. Absolutely. And hopefully greater Europe.
Hopefully we will grow together.
It's exciting.
Thank you so much. So let's start with the basics. Tell us a little bit how you started your journey and how Lot 20 came to be.
All right. So Lot 20 is a hobby that went a bit too far. So I come from a software engineering background, and I grew up in the Rift Valley part of Kenya, which has a very long storied history with coffee. So my first experience with coffee is like my family grew coffee in the late 2000s, but they had to uproot it because it was a fairly odd time to be a coffee farmer. And then I rediscovered coffee in my adulthood as a beverage that kept us going in a very high, stressful tech environment. And the way I got into specialty coffee is I started roasting my own coffee, starting with some green coffee that I got from farmer friends, doing it in my pan. And from that, I started looking at it as a way to fix the problem I saw when I was growing up. So I started a small hobby business when I was working in Rwanda, in Kigali. That's how I really started working more intimately with coffee. And it started with a project that I did with coffee farmers around Rwanda. We were collecting data that we used to do data analytics to allow local banks to lend to coffee farmers. And that's where I started seeing the missing pieces from my experience in childhood with coffee. So I thought there might be opportunity to add value to the farmers as well as make a small hobby business on the side.
Nice.
A couple of years later, I started a small subscription service for coffee lovers in Kigali, and that grew into trying to see if I can give back more to the farmers in Rwanda. So I did my first coffee export in 2019. But then, coming from Kenya, I thought I could do the same in Kenya. So I moved back after COVID and started Lot 20. The name Lot 20 is actually very interesting. The goal was to get 20 of my neighbors, cousins, friends, put together 20 lots of coffee and try and see if we can get that directly to the market as close as to the roasters as possible. So that's the inspiration between the name and the motivation for the company. It's to bring coffee from neighbors, friends, cousins from my community to the world. That's how we started, basically.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And you said you were working in data analysis. You have a background in computer engineering.
Yeah. So my background is I'm a software engineer. So some of the problem-solving abilities that we use in software engineering does help in what we do in coffee. Because initially I thought the way to approach this problem was a software oriented, but we found out that it is a relationship and a trust issue that we need to develop with coffee farmers. Because classically, most coffee farmers are members of cooperatives. So, and given the history of the last 3 decades, cooperatives have always been mismanaged. They don't treat their farmers as well as they used to. They are exceptional cooperative, don't get me wrong, but a majority have very poor relationship with the farmer. So we thought to build a direct relationship between the farmers and act as a representative for them, centralize, for example, buying cherries, processing cherries, and marketing coffee and exporting coffee. Some of the things that can be very challenging for small-scale coffee farmers that have usually between 50 trees to maybe, if we are lucky, have a big farm, 1,000 trees. So it is a matter of using organizations, creating trust within the community, and also demonstrating that you are always looking out for them. Nice. And the best way to do that is to be honest, pay them on time, and pay them really well.
So, I mean, because I'm curious, where do you see your skills as an engineer help you approach challenges in the coffee industry in general? And like, did you even imagine in this that your journey first as a software engineer would lead you to something where you problem solve at a community level?
To be honest, no. I think, coffee tends to bring people from diverse backgrounds. A lot of the people I've interacted in the last 4 years have been musicians, engineers, designers, and all of us end up working in coffee. I think my background gives me that critical thinking, that problem solving, and analytical skills that helps you solve problems. And besides that, we realize that some of the problems facing the coffee industry are systemic and community-based and people-based. So I think learning how to relate with people at the simplest level has been helpful to set up a coffee business and set up a business run by thousands and thousands of farmers, because we need to organize individuals into communities and into a functioning entity.
And you started with a mission to get 20 lots, but now you ended up with?
Right now we are managing hundreds of lots, because I think when you do, the goal was very simplified. I thought that was the best approach, to have a small, manageable, achievable goal. And from that you grow to whatever direction it goes to. So started with 20 lots. Initially, we didn't even manage the 20 lots. Because it was hard to convince people that we are a real business, we mean what we say. So we started with 6 guys. And our first year, we only traded 20 bags of coffee. But as we demonstrated the ability and earned the trust of some of the community members, we grew to 200 farmers. Now we work with other partners, and we've grown our network to a few thousand farmers.
Nice. That's really interesting, right? Because you can see that, like, the core issue, for example, in terms of trying to help a farmer or transform a farm, like, your first barrier is trust. And the reason the first barrier has been trust, because the industry in its entirety before, I would say, the growth of specialty coffee has been about first pressuring farmers to harvest as much as possible, to then take their coffee, and as you explained to us before, it's like they deliver the coffee and then it goes into I don't know how many hands across 7 months for them to be maybe paid a fraction of what they should have. So I think this has been kind of like the system that has created this kind of distrust and this barrier for you to enter and start working with them?
Yeah, I do. It's a fairly complex value chain, the coffee one, because I will speak for the case of Kenya, where I know and I've been working in. it is a very long chain if you, in the traditional sense, where a farmer is a member of a cooperative. Given the regulations that have existed in the industry in Kenya, it can be a very long and complex value chain. A farmer delivers their coffee or coffee cherries on credit to their local cooperative. The cooperative processes it across a 3 or 4 month harvesting season. By the time they have enough coffee to be taken to a dry mill, it's 3 months later. The farmer has not been paid. And then there's an even longer value chain. The coffee it's taken to a dry mill, it waits in a very long queue because there's so many cooperatives and other individuals bringing the coffee. It's another month. The coffee then is milled by the dry mill and is taken to a marketing agency that takes the coffee to the national auction or the coffee exchange, where there is another party waiting to bid on the coffee. So it adds weeks and months at the end before the farmer is paid. And unfortunately also, every part of that value chain, someone has a little bit of a cut or a vested interest. So by the time that value starts trickling down as well, the farmer gets paid pennies for their kilo of cherries. And I think our approach is a bit more different. Besides the trust, we actually put money up front so that the farmer has value immediately. And we are also shortening that long value chain by working directly with importers on this side of the consuming market that we share values with. So it means that between the farmer and the roaster, there's us as the producer representing these farmers and one importer that really cares about the values that we hold. So instead of 7 parties, there are only 2 parties in between. And we see that the payment that we get from the partners.
So you not only kind of like cut the chain for them, you even cut the chain for you to be able to take the coffee from here and deliver it to the end consumer in the least amount of people involved and the fastest way possible.
Exactly. We are building in efficiency also into the system by taking over some of the responsibilities that would have been played by 4 other parties. And given that, as said, software engineer, we're always trying to be as efficient in the most appropriate way. So
nice.
And also that value that was in between all these other interested parties, we're taking back directly to the farmer. Because we are paying small cuts to those stakeholders that previously existed. So I think
super. And one more thing about like the beginnings, because you roasted your first coffee in a pan, and this was your and then you grew that into a subscription service, but now also you became the producer that takes the cherries and then you handle all the processing. So in the beginning, where were you processing the coffees versus where do you do it now?
So initially when I started, I was running the roasting side of this business. It was, I think it provided a platform to learn the other end of the chain. So I think coming from running a small subscription service, I understood the challenges from a roaster's perspective and from a business that serves consumers. So when we went back, or when I went back and started doing the producing side, we took those lessons to see if we could arrange our business in such a way that some of the challenges that we were facing. For example, one is quality of coffee. When we started, I was just buying green coffee from a local, in Rwanda it was through a farmer that brought their coffee to the National Export Board. But I really didn't understand quality, how to assess for defects, all those things. But working in that space, I understood how to deal with green coffee. Nice. So when I went to the producing side, I produced with the goal of producing the best quality coffee possible. So I think working on both sides gives you insights to
Absolutely.
all aspects.
You are working on a lot of sides, I'm going to be on, because you also take risks because of how you've designed your model to eliminate risk for the producer. I remember you mentioned that sometimes you buy a coffee that looks high quality, but in the end, it doesn't end up to the standard that you would have hoped for, no?
Yes, I think the way we've arranged our business now is that since we are assuming the risk and offsetting the risk from the farmers, they will deliver us cherries that might look ripe and beautiful, but we really don't know what it will taste like eventually. We will process it to the best of our ability, but the cup score will be a result of so many factors. So I think we provide a safety net for farmers that they don't have to be paid against the quality of the final product. We take a calculated risk and see that.
And in a case that a coffee ends up with a low cupping score, you still can find...
we still can find a valuable market for it and extract the most value out of it. But at the end of the day, the farmer gets paid a fair payment for that coffee, regardless of what the end product will be.
Super. We'll get back to the methodologies of Lot 20, which for me has been like really fascinating. How kind of, you really look at, you break down the processes and the challenges, and you offer all that kind of support that you do. But I wanted to first talk about the specialty coffee scene in East Africa. So East Africa also especially Kenya, has been ramping up a great reputation in terms of the quality of coffee, and especially in specialty as well. And we've seen an incredible growth over the years of this industry. But from your perspective, working closely with farmers on the ground, what are the unseen challenges of these growth?
So, to be honest, it's been a wonderful last half decade in Kenya in terms of specialty coffee. We're seeing a lot of consumption, small growth in consumption locally. So that's, as a producer, knowing that I can take some of my best coffee to a local roaster has been nice. There has been a growing number of specialty coffee roasters, and people are getting more educated and consuming some. It's not a big consuming market for coffee, but there is growth. It might be small, but it's beautiful to see that.
What is the impact? Because coffee has been a product that is enjoyed outside of the coffee growing communities more than the coffee growing communities as well. So what is the impact of a growing industry, internally?
First, it's the information that producers and farmers have. And I'll give this credit to proliferation of technology and availability of simple equipment that means farmers can enjoy their coffee. So we've seen that the growing consumption locally has helped farmers be more informed. Some farmers have the opportunity to taste their coffee for the first time because they produce and it goes to a black box. Not knowing where that coffee goes. But the fact that in the local small town there is someone roasting their coffee on a cheap Chinese coffee roaster, and that they can go there and taste their coffee. They get exposure to their own coffee, which never happened in the last however many decades we've been producing.
It's a level of awakening, right? Seeing your own product or experiencing firsthand, it makes you value it in a new way, no?
Absolutely. And we see appreciation of coffees like, oh, my coffee can taste that good. And when they go back to their farms, it does motivate you because there's a pride thing to seeing the end result of your year's effort of farming.
Absolutely.
The other thing is it's opened up more opportunities for farmers because before your only way is if you produce coffee, it had to go into like this giant machinery that processed bulk coffee and exported it. nowadays there might be a nice little coffee roaster in Nairobi that say, I like coffee from this farmer. And they go directly to the farmer and pay farm gate price.
Nice.
So the consumption locally has opened up smaller opportunities as well. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so we mentioned before that specialty coffee boom creates opportunities and challenges for small-scale farmers. Like, what are the hidden trade-offs that the industry doesn't often discuss in terms of, like, the challenges of a growing industry?
So, to be honest, we talk a lot about transparency in the industry, and as much as we are trying to get recognition to all the farmers that do this, it's a fairly complex commodity that we trade in.
Yeah.
So I think some of the challenges we see is that, especially in East Africa where farms are far much smaller, we are having to group farmers together. So we might lose that aspect of direct relationship with the farmer.
Yeah.
But at those levels, we have to give credit to community groups or farmer groups. And how their work it might not be one individual farmer, but a group of farmers. We need to recognize them and take value back to them. The challenges are, to be honest, given that most farmers in East Africa have got tiny little farms, there have been challenges of how to track what each farmer grows. Because we have these farmers say, oh, I like this variety of coffee or that variety of coffee. So there's challenges as we're trying to make smaller, more traceable lots. How do we manage all these thousands of farmers, each growing a different variety?
Yeah.
So it creates, as we are trying to create more traceability, we're also creating a complexity in how we buy and trade coffee, which leads me to a question that most roasters often ask. It's like, oh, we've lost that classic Kenyan profile. But farmers are adapting to changes that are beyond their control. The reason why that farmers say I like Ruiru 11 is because they know they might not be able to grow SL because they don't have the financial capacity to control leaf rust, for example, which needs very expensive organic disease control mechanism. So they will prefer hardier variety. But the roasters are always used to that classic blueberry from a Kenyan, which in reality will not be possible to produce because we're having to grow varietals that are resilient to changing weather, the financial standing of small farmers. So I think those challenges needs to be, those realities needs to be understood by roasters and buyers and consumers. That there are bigger challenges beyond wanting that single varietal God profile.
True.
But that the reality that farmers are struggling to keep up with changing rainfall patterns, changing availability of, if you want an organic coffee, most farmers cannot afford to farm organically because organic fertilizer, organic pest control, disease control is beyond their means. So there are certain realities that most roasters ignore in pursuit of high caliber specialty coffee. So I think those realities are what I would consider relevant challenges.
Fair enough. And I remember a report from the SCA some years ago, and they also mentioned like the biggest challenge still, like we're seeing a lot of growth in the industry, but the biggest challenge remains democratization. And I think, like you were saying, it's like, and I think democratization is rooted in the more people know, the more they will be open to whatever, accept more things or try new things and so on. And it's interesting because we see democratization from the consumer side where, we try to share the values of specialty coffee because of the impact it does at the source and also in terms of quality. But this is the first time that I'm hearing that there's a democratization that we need to do also with the roasters themselves.
So I feel now that we have the opportunity to create more impact, as you've said. Paying higher and higher for specialty coffee needs to be done in a way that we can measure the impact it has. You don't want that value that you're paying X amounts of dollars a kilo for certain caliber of specialty coffee to remain in Europe, for example. You need to have that impact, traceable and measurable at origin. And the best way to do that is democratization of information. We are lucky to be in a position where we can come talk to you, but there are smaller farmers that may not have that opportunity. But the way we do it is like we train and share information with the producing partners and the farmer partners that we work with. Like, when I come here, take a bag of coffee, it's like, this is the coffee that was roasted. They have access to internet. They can see the pricing on your website, and we can inform them that, look, this is, for example, why this coffee will cost $16, $10, $5, $30.
But I think that, like, this is a part where a lot of people are responsible, because something that we are trying to do is also focus on working with the importers that share really that information, because we have encountered certain situations where we don't really know 100%. So there's all of these players that I think, and I think this is the magic of this industry, is that it really puts together a lot of people working towards the same direction of transparency, democratization, sustainability, ethical practices, and so on. And everyone is also assuming their role in the chain to make all of this, the fantastic product that it is,
I do agree that after shortening all the value chain that we mentioned before, finding the right partner that agrees with your values and is transparent to the level best is amazing. For example, the way we choose our import partners that bring you coffees, we don't want to be the guys trying to do the entire value chain. That takes away from our strengths. We are good at managing farmers and the relationship with farmers and producing really good coffee. But our strength ends at when we get that coffee to port.
Exactly.
So we choose an import partner like Mwani, who you work with, that shares the values that we have. We hand over that responsibility, and then we trust that the relationship they keep with you on our behalf is as transparent as possible, because we will know what they are transparent with the price that they sell coffee to you, for example.
Absolutely.
And we are transparent to them for the price we pay for cherries, the cost of our production, the margins that we have, for example, and all our expenses as well. And we are transparent with the farmers with how much it costs us after we buy cherries of them to process the coffee, and how much we sell it to our import partners. So I think each party playing and taking its responsibility very seriously is just
is the way it should go. Well, I have to tell you, Mwani is doing a great job in that sense, and there's a lot of transparency from their end, and we appreciate them for that. Let's get deeper a little bit into Kenya. In our last conversations, you mentioned that Kenya is one of those, there's a lot of government regulations around coffee, and even though we said the intention is in a good place in terms of to disrupt a little bit monopolies and things like that, it is still somehow they do end up making it harder for smaller producers and so on. How do you navigate, as Lot 20, navigate this landscape, and what changes do you think you would make in a government to open more the door for smaller farmers to have access to this industry?
It is absolutely true that the Kenyan coffee ecosystem is fairly complex. The way we approach it is, one, it's a critical understanding of the regulations and the regulatory landscape. And then secondly, compliance. We try to comply with every regulations that is there. It's as simple as that. And then, of course, there is, to be honest, coloring the gray lines. We need to understand where we can do things that are always looking out for the farmers and the producers, even if they are not fully compliant. There has to be transparency in that. But the first thing we do is understanding the regulations and being compliant. And the way we do that is where all our entities are fully licensed, they comply with all the licensing requirements, but also knowing how to interpret those regulations for the benefit of us and for the benefits of our farmers and for the efficiency of actually getting the coffee exported. It's as simple as that. What I would do is, well, there's really nothing much we can do but keep up with compliance. That's it. It's very simple like that. Understand regulations, comply, and find the best way to interpret it.
Okay. Yeah. So would you say what you do different is loosen things up in certain areas?
I think over-regulations is never good for any industry because it is a self-balancing ecosystem. Farmers will always want the best deal for themselves, and producers will do their best to make the best coffee possible. And import and export partners will find the best deal for the best coffee possible. So it's a self-balancing system. So looser regulations within reason, of course, is the best way to go.
Fair enough.
But it's outside of our control. So.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's go back into your model of working with farms, because you don't just buy farmers' coffees. You approach these small farms. You establish a relationship. You offer your expertise, and you work with them directly with the tools they already have, the resources they already have, and help them become more self-reliant from the coffee production alone, so that when they grow it, they deliver it to you, you eliminate the risk, you pay them, their job is done, and then you go and you process. Can you tell us about this transformation process, and what does it normally that make it challenging for the farmer to make this transformation, other than the trust in itself?
So you will notice that we work in a very large territory. We work with close to over 2,000 farmers now, and we've had to organize them into little groups. So the best way to do that is by village, by ward, by people groups, and then within those communities appoint leaders that manage those groups. And then within those groups we have to manage logistics, because we produce at central area, so we have to collect all these cherry from so many places. So the way we do it is we have what we call buying centers, where each group brings their cherries, and then a representative of a buying center manager brings the cherries too, or we go pick the cherries with our trucks from those buying centers. So besides the organization has been trying to improve how efficient the farmers are, because we don't want them borrowing from their other businesses to supplement coffee, because we don't want them to sell their milk, get some money, use that money to pay for
the coffee
inputs, and then not get a profit out of the coffee. So they're basically stealing from themselves. We want to eliminate that. We want the coffee in their farms. If it's 50 trees, 100 trees, 10,000 trees, to take care of themselves. So the way we do that is we try to educate them to use the tools that they have. If it's farm inputs, if they have a cow or goat, to manage manure so that it goes into the field, so that there is no additional input, but codependent or supplementary relationship between the other farming businesses to the coffee. And two, we are teaching them to run the coffee as a business, not a hobby, not a side hustle, but as a business. Those 50 trees should pay for your time, for the inputs. And when we pay you and give you a profit as well. So it's not a hobby. You don't want them stealing from their smells. You don't want them to work for free. So it doesn't matter if it's 50 trees, it should always give you a positive income. And then other simple things like financial management. All our payments are digital. We pay via M-Pesa. So we want to make sure that we at least use simple technology. We use SMSs to disseminate information. For example, we have a mass SMS for when we want them, based on the region, to put manure on their coffee trees.
Yeah.
The way we manage like picking dates, we know each group picks on a Tuesday. So we send a reminder SMS. So the simplest tool have the biggest impact on used correctly. And then the beauty of Kenya is financial management, financial services are very advanced because of cashless payment with M-Pesa. So the way we pay money is cashless, and we try to teach them to manage whatever little money that is.
Yeah.
In some cases where we have good relationship with these slightly bigger farmers, we have either credit advances knowing that they have got good cherries and we can get back our money. So
nice.
We understand that our farmers have very simple needs, that sometimes they need to pay school fees and they won't have cherries until a certain time. So we try and build in community-based and trust-based credit service. It's not really credit, it's just looking out for the people that we work with.
And you're pretty much pre-buying the coffee.
Yes, we are pre-buying the coffee. So simple things like that. But the way we do it is we use the simplest tools, not complex systems, SMS, a simple mobile phone, and that's it. In cases where we bring them into a central place. If we have longer educational formats, might be a screen with a YouTube video of how a farmer in South America is doing the processing. Simple tools like that. And we pre-download videos in a drive USB thumb. You can go watch it even on our small computers on our processing center.
Yeah.
We use the simplest approachable tools to share information, because that's all what's about.
That's amazing. That's super nice. One of our biggest challenges as humanity is climate change, which has been like a heavy hit on the coffee growing, like the coffee belt. And it's a really big concern that we're seeing it's affecting more and more in agriculture and in coffee. So how has climate change impacted the farmers you work with in Kenya, and what are the steps already being taken to kind of navigate this change or protect the coffee production in the future?
This is where the sad news is, unfortunately, for us. We're seeing big impacts, less rain, longer dry spells, and there's not much we can do now. It's either adapting and trying to look out and prepare for the future. For now, the only thing that we see in farmers really is they're adopting like the hybrids that we developed in Kenya in the last couple of decades. So you'll see more farmers growing some of these hybrids that tend, for good reasons, more adaptable to drier, hotter climates. You'll see more Ruiru and Batia, which the farmers are forced to, because the way they were designed to be a bit more hardy. That's the only thing farmers can do now. If we were living in an ideal environment where we had better research by our governments, we would be encouraging them to help us research into how we can shield our farmers.
But is there like other initiatives working on finding more resilient like varieties, or?
We have our own internal initiatives, but we don't have governmental resources. So it's just little resources that we can do, either by sharing information with other producing countries and smaller producer exporters like us. They'll be like, oh, we have this variety in Peru that seems to be doing okay. Sometimes they sneak us some seeds and we are planting it in trial plots. At our company at Lot 20, we have a small arm of a nursery program where we've been doing nurseries and to plant seedlings that we distribute to farmers who want to get onto coffee farming. Because a lot of farmers also want to get into it but may not have the ability. So we are using that arm of our company to trial little research projects. It's as simple as that.
which is a great segue into my next topic, which is about innovation in Lot 20. Can you tell us about the experiments you've been working on lately, and what is the happy accidents or the mega failures that you've encountered along these experiments?
Yeah, our experimentation has been a survival technique, because as we mentioned just now, it's like all these new varieties, we get feedback from roasters that, they don't taste as they used to be. So I think since we really can change what varieties are growing in our communities, we can innovate around processing to make sure that coffee tastes a certain way or add more value or dimension to those existing varieties. So this has been adopting what other people are doing. So aspects like using yeast in fermentation, either for washed coffees or anaerobic natural processed coffees, using bacteria such as lactobacillus to juice up the coffee. Some of the other things we do is co-fermentation, which is a topic for another day, but we feel like as producers and representative of farmers, if we are having to intervene slightly more to add value to the coffee, I think as producers and farmers, we have a right to do that. If it improves the coffee, improves the value, and the opinions on co-processing or co-fermentation should really be looking out to why farmers are motivated to do that, or why you're motivated to do that. Because it adds value and a bit of a difference or a differentiator, or even changes the way coffee tastes, for good or for worse. So we've had very many successes. We've had some brilliant tasting coffees. We've had some very bad coffees as well, but that's the beauty of experimentation. So
you've mentioned before you were fermenting with things like orange peels and
we've done orange peels, we've done whole blended orange with pulp with seeds, and one of our favorite coffees now is orange co-fermented coffees. We've done banana, we've done mango, which was my least favorite, to be honest.
I would have expected good results from the mango.
No, it turns out to be the worst of them. I'm sure other people have better success.
Okay, we're getting into the end, and to talk a little bit about the future of Lot 20 and Kenyan coffee. So, looking forward, where do you see Lot 20 in the next few years? Do you have plans to grow, or is your focus on deepening and maintaining the relationships you already have and work from there?
I think for now we're trying to deepen and foster the relationship we have existing. But as a small company, of course, we always have ambitions to grow, but we want to grow in a reasonable manner. But the immediate goal is to build on the relationship we have. If it means increasing capacity within those relationships, that is our more achievable goal. Growth in future will be something to look into. But if it means growing to bring on more farmers, that is genuinely interesting.
And so your short-term vision is also still focused on the Rift Valley community, or have you already expanded beyond that?
Our focus now is the community where we come from. It's a region that historically has not been the most well exposed. It's not as famous like Central Kenya and Mount Kenya region, but it's always produced beautiful coffees that got lost in the system. So we just want to highlight farmers, producers from the region. So our focus is that side, at least Western Kenya for now.
You've been doing a fantastic job. I myself, I'm a big fan of your initiative, and I really, it's really rare to find something that is so engaged in the nuances of everything and always make sure that literally everyone across whatever chain you are dealing with is being treated fair, is also on the path of improvement and self-reliance and all of that. So really congratulations on everything you've done so far.
Thank you. Of course, we are always learning. We make mistakes like everyone else. So, but hopefully, when we make mistakes, we can address them. So, but it's a continuous learning experience. But we're happy with how far we are now.
Yeah.
We hope to continue learning and making new friendships as well.
Super. We're gonna finish with words of wisdom and some rapid fire questions. So, words of wisdom. A message you have for roasters like us, and a message you have to the end consumer, our customers.
For roasters, we really want to encourage picking good partners and trying to build relationship. We talk a lot about transparency, sustainability, but sustainability can be defined in so many ways. So if we can we can advise roasters is to build better and closer relationship with their producing partners and their partners as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it doesn't make sense for the roaster to go to the farm. There's someone who can do that job better. Picking a good import partner, for example, who works really well with a producer in the producing country. For consumers, we want consumers to learn, ask the local barista, the local roaster, what new interesting coffees. Learn more about who produced that coffee, and also try a bit more weirder coffee sometimes.
Happy surprises. I've had some, and it really motivates you to be like, oh, this is fermented in this way. I wonder how it's gonna surprise me. So, and it's also something that I love about specialty coffee. It's like, it's because it's so many small farmers and it's so kind of like broken down. Like whatever you try, there's going to be the next one, which is going to bring you something new in every region and every, even buying from the same farm in different harvest seasons is a different experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's like you can't be hung on anything on specialty coffee. You got to be open.
An open mind is one of the things you have to have, because it's an organic product, so it reacts to weather, the influences, the people who touch it. As terroir sometimes is only the people.
Maybe because also as consumers we got used to like a certain supply chain which guarantees us the same thing all the time, which we've learned after a little bit, such a long time, that this literally means that things are not done well, because if you leave things to nature is diverse and will give you new things all the time.
And also I think one of the biggest things that we have formed is stereotypes. Say, a certain origin tastes like this. It can taste as hundreds of farmers that farm differently. There was more sun that year, so I think we should avoid stereotypes most time. It's go to a coffee shop and drink that coffee with an open mind, enjoy that cup, not the original, but we refuse stereotypes.
We're hopeful for a future. The more the community is growing, the more people also are understanding really all the nuances behind, and it's a complicated, massive world. Like it's gonna take time. Our closing with rapid fire questions. It's a yes or no. Coffee in the morning. Definitely. How many?
Unhealthy amounts of filter coffee in the morning.
What's your favorite brewing method?
I think early in the morning I'd love a nice pour over coffee, and then if I can get to my local cafe, a nice espresso to pump you up.
Nice. Coffee alone or with company?
The coffee is enjoyed best with company, except maybe your morning routine when you're still booting up. So
some people need time.
You need that routine to just get up there.
Absolutely. A person you would love to have a coffee chat with?
There's so many people. I think I'd like to bring on board more roasters, and maybe the daddy of coffee, James Hoffman, would be nice. Quiz him on some things.
We'll send him this one. Who knows? And how many coffees in total a day?
I'm trying to cut down on my coffee, but now I think I'm at a healthy 7 cups. So.
Amazing. Well, that will be all. I want to thank you again. Every time I talk to you, it's always fruitful, profound, and it's always amazing to learn about your work in Kenya and the whole industry in East Africa. So thank you again so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And thank you for having me.
Of course.
It's the work of several thousand farmers, to be honest. We're just the face that represents them. So, but thank you for having us. Thank you for supporting us.
Of course.
I look forward to working with you and with Omwani for the next many, many years.
Super.
Thank you.
Us as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.